Dear friends, I would like to talk to you about uh, my Human Rights Tribunal action. I'm testing first of all to make sure that the volume is uh, good, and please just bear with me for a moment. And okay, so it seems to be okay now. Um, Okay, so let me start out by saying that I had, for some reason, the desire to attend the memorial this past April. And not because I was thinking of going back to the organization, but because I wanted to see some people that I hadn't seen for over 5 years. And some of these people I liked, for many years prior to uh, having been asked to. I guess they told me that I was no longer welcome. And so let me tell you a little bit about the story. But because I decided to go to the memorial, I thought that I better, find out what the position was. So I talked to a brother at the Canadian branch Friday, April 11th, 2025, and I asked, as if I didn't know, I asked if all are welcome to attend a memorial. But the difference is, even those like myself who have been told or asked back in 2020 that they're no longer welcome in the Kingdom Hall. And so I shared my personal situation with a brother. Um, so back in 2020, in July of 2020, wearing masks was not mandatory in British Columbia. And so I didn't wear a mask. And also, I believe that the COVID pandemic that the governments and the media were fear-mongering about to get everyone to take a vaccine, I believe that that was a fraud. The same as the American government, uh, who perpetrated on their people back in 1976 the flu or the swine flu pandemic. And Mike Wallace reported this on 60 Minutes. And he basically exposed that this pandemic was a fraud, that there was no such thing or a reason for a swine flu pandemic, and no valid reason whatsoever for the people to take a vaccine. But of course, the government convinced everyone that this was going to be a swine flu pandemic, a disaster that was going to kill millions and millions. And so, of course, as a result, people believed their government and took a vaccine. Unfortunately, what happened is that many of them got injured, and as a result, they sued the government because, they obviously said that they took the vaccine because their government convinced them that this was going to save their life and that this flu was uh, of such a strength that it was very, very dangerous and so on. And unfortunately, their government wasn't taking any responsibility for all of these injuries. So I had sent this video along with other videos and information to the elders in an effort to warn them about the possibility of another fraud for money in 2020 that the governments and their media and false science were staging and directing people toward a COVID vaccine. And no other treatment was even considered and any other treatment became the treatment of conspiracy theorists. Scientists and doctors who spoke against the COVID vaccine and who warned about its dangers and who were seeing overwhelming side effects on their own patients lost their license to practice and were labeled anti-vaxxers. Uh, the truth has been revealing itself these past 5 years that the COVID pandemic was exactly another fraud, as back in 1976, and the swine flu. Sadly, most of those who profited from it refused to be accountable and fixed it so that they would not be held accountable. And so instead, governments and pharmaceuticals and the media and most doctors still push these vaccines as the savior. And my feeling is that if vaccines were so safe and effective, why are they shielded by the government so that pharmaceuticals cannot be sued and are not held liable in court uh, for the people who have suffered an injury, and not just an injury, but oftentimes it's a serious disability, a lifelong disability, and not to mention that, of course, there are deaths even among those. The majority are injured, but there are also many deaths. So if the governments, for example, removed the no liability to pharmaceuticals for injuries and deaths caused by vaccines, the pharmaceuticals would stop manufacturing them that moment because they were going bankrupt on them before the governments gave them that exemption. And because they were going bankrupt on these vaccines from all the lawsuits, they went to the governments and started crying to them, and saying that unless you give us this protection of no liability, we're not going to be able to make any more vaccines. And the government, instead of saying, well, don't, if they're that bad that you can't make a profit, but you're going bankrupt on making them, that means that they're no good. But no, of course, the government wanted to protect them and wanted to, make money along with them. So what they did is that instead, the government took on the responsibility for the vaccine injuries from taking taxes from the people. So they not only did they cause injuries and deaths to people, but now they were taking taxes from them for them to pay for the injuries and the deaths that these pharmaceuticals were causing. And of course, these government courts on these injuries were nothing but kangaroo courts. So without government mandates and blackmail to take vaccines, most people would not take them. So the COVID fraud has exposed governments, pharmaceuticals, false doctors, false scientists to most of us. Those who believe in them are welcome to them, is my belief. But governments should be held accountable for their part in mandating them and using their power in such a criminal way. However, sadly, they have shielded themselves from accountability also. So mandating them is not passing laws, but the governments used other methods of blackmailing people into taking the vaccines. Uh, Doctors and nurses and government employees, for example, lost their job if they refused to take the COVID vaccine. not once, but more than once. Anyways, how did this come about to affect me? Well, of course, I at times shared my views with people. Not that I was telling them what to do, but I did mention that there are other ways, that there were other ways of treating, uh, you know, uh, every flu season, you know, uh, I mean, what was wrong with what we've been, for thousands and thousands of years, we've survived all sorts of flus and all sorts of viruses because, God gave us a fantastic immunity system. We have a fantastic immune system that has been able to overcome all of these viruses and all of these uh, uh, natural viruses and natural flu. But of course, they started to mess around with nature and they started, making, monster viruses in their laboratories. So of course, then that's a different, monster of its own. Anyways, in a Zoom meeting, in the breakout rooms, a sister was sharing her feelings about how many people are so inconsiderate in public places and don't wear a mask, and how she felt very upset about their conduct. And in an effort to help her relieve her anxiety and worry, I said that, in BC, wearing a mask was not mandatory in July 2020, and that probably many people, I said probably many felt that it was not necessary to wear a mask and that they probably found that it was still safe. And at that moment, a brother came into the breakout room and asked me to leave the room because of my comment. So this kind of treatment is very humiliating and degrading. And so I wrote a letter to all the elders about the situation and conduct from this elder, and basically said, you know, the situation the way it is right now is that masking is not mandatory. So why get upset and why blame me for my comment? But the response was that the brother who removed me from the breakout meeting, and another brother called me a few days later by phone and told me that I was no longer welcome to attend the Zoom meetings. Well, I guess that I all of a sudden I was a threat, to them in the Zoom meetings. Anyways, I figured fine, you know, because this had not been the first time that the elders and I came to a difference of opinion. And of course, I'm not, the kind that just because they're elders, first let me tell you that I was never baptized. I started associating with the witnesses back in 2012 or 2011, 2012, something like that. And my first meeting with them uh, that I asked for, and I was wanting to become an unbaptized publisher in 2013. And I'll tell you about that afterwards. But so since 2013 to 2020, I had gotten into a disagreement with them more than once. And of course, I use the Bible, I use the scriptures to make my points, which of course, it's something that they don't like, and especially not by a woman. But anyways, I held my ground. Anyway, let me continue with the story here. So back in so after they told me that, that was fine. I didn't go to any of the meetings and so on. And even though I had a lot of disagreements with the elders, I still believed that this was God's organization back then. Anyway, but I had been told back in 2016 that I was no longer welcome in the Kingdom Hall by the elders from that congregation. But when I wrote a letter to the Canadian branch explaining what had happened, the Canadian branch told me that the Kingdom Hall is a public place of worship, which I knew, and that I can attend if I want to. So this is what the stand that they took, that, that the elders, even though they asked me or told me that I was no longer welcome, it's not up to them, since the Kingdom Hall is a public place of worship. But back then, I decided that it would be best to transfer to another Kingdom Hall because of all the problems I had been experiencing with the elders of this Deer Lake congregation. And so I asked the Canadian branch if I could transfer to the Edmonds or the Royal Oak congregation. And the Canadian branch said yes. So I attended the Edmonds or the Royal Oak congregation um, from 2016 to 2020. Um, a day or so, or a few days prior to going to the memorial, I spoke to a neighbor of mine just in the next street over. Uh, Diana, so a sister, uh, I told her, that I felt like going to the memorial, and she was all happy about it. She said, "Great, it would be fantastic. Would you like for us to pick you up?" And I said, "No, not really. It's not necessary. I can, get there myself." But I contacted the Deer Lake congregation April 11th, 2025, and left them a message about my desire to go to the memorial, and asked for them to contact me regarding my desire to attend the memorial. So they didn't return my call. And so I contacted the Canadian branch office April 11, 2025, and asked the brother if everyone is welcome to attend the memorial. And he told me that according to their website, everyone is welcome uh, at the Kingdom Hall, because the Kingdom Hall is a public place of worship. And so this is what the Canadian branch told me. Um, and this is what they had told me in 2016 as well. When the brothers from the Deer Lake congregation first told me that I was no longer welcome at their Kingdom Hall. Um, but the Canadian branch told me that the Kingdom Hall is a public place of worship and that I can attend if I want to. So now this is the second time that the brothers of the Deer Lake congregation had told me that I'm no longer welcome in their Kingdom Hall. And the second time that I'm told by brothers from the Canadian branch office that the Kingdom Hall is a public place of worship, and that as long as people do not cause a disturbance or are a threat to themselves or others, they are welcome. So I have never caused a disturbance. And of course, as a Christian, I try to behave in a manner that brings honor to God, to Jehovah. Uh, so on April 11th, 2025, I explained to the brother I spoke with from the Canadian branch that I was asked not to attend the Edmonds or the Royal Oak congregation, and that I was not welcome. And the brother I spoke with of the Canadian branch, uh, April 11, 2025, again checked the website and again reassured me that the Kingdom Hall is a public place of worship and that all are welcome. Okay, so then I figured, okay, then I'm gonna go. And I got ready and I got there at 7:25. So 5 minutes before the beginning of the service for the memorial. However, when I arrived at the Kingdom Hall at the Deer Lake, April 12, 2025, at about 7:25 p.m., a brother recognized me at the entrance of the Kingdom Hall and told me, guess what? That I was not welcome. Okay, so I told him, I said, I was told by a brother at the Canadian branch that the Kingdom Hall is a public place of worship and that everyone is welcome. The brother said to me that the brother at the Canadian branch office was wrong. And get this now, that the Kingdom Hall is not a public place of worship, and that their decision of 5 years ago stands. And when I asked them what was their decision and why, the response was, well, that was 5 years ago, so we don't remember. So they remembered that they had asked me or told me that I was no longer welcome, but didn't remember why. But what mattered is that they had made that decision. That's all that mattered to them. And it didn't matter to them that this was a memorial. Okay. And so uh, what the Jesus himself had asked us to do in remembrance of him, that didn't matter to them. What did matter, though, was their own decision. Okay. Uh, Actually, I was at the Edmonds or the Royal Oak congregation. It was the Edmonds or the Royal Oak congregation that asked me or told me that I was no longer welcome in their congregation in 2020, not the Deer Lake congregation. But obviously, they all, they're all sort of they know what the other congregation is doing, and they all held the same view. And what was the problem? It was my personal belief in natural uh, medicine. So this was a problem with them or to them all along from back in 2013, because I'll share with you about what happened in those meetings from 2013 in another video. But right now, I just want to focus on what happened that evening of the memorial and let you know about that, because this is what I brought uh, as a complaint to the Human Rights Tribunal. Because by not allowing me to participate or to be part of the memorial that evening, what they did is they took away my human right, my freedom of religion. Since the Kingdom Hall is a public place of worship, they had no right, or it would be a huge discrimination for them to say everyone else is welcome, but not you. And what is the reason? Well, they can't remember. But when we'll go in discovery, it'll be because of my personal beliefs in natural medical treatments, which is something that elders have no right to even question. Never mind make a decision or a judgment about that, that says that I'm not welcome for a particular reason. Um, and so the other thing is, as I mentioned, Jehovah Witnesses invite everyone to their memorial, even disfellowshipped ones. Now, I have never been disfellowshipped, and I'm not one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I have never been baptized. I'm a member of the public. So, as a member of the public, my personal natural medicine, medical beliefs are my own, and the elders have no right to hold those against me or hold it against me for having them or for sharing them with others if I so choose, and if they so choose to listen to me. So on the evening of the memorial, the Deer Lake congregation felt that the decision the Edmonds or the Royal Oak congregation made about something that they could not even remember was more important than, as I said, than allowing me to obey a request from Jesus to attend his memorial. In addition, they threatened to call the police if I did not leave and that they would press charges. So right away I replied to the brother there, charge me with what? Have I broken any laws? Have I caused a disturbance? Am I being a threat to anyone? I'm simply a woman, okay, wanting to attend the memorial. Okay. And the brother insisted that I leave because I was not welcome. And so, you know, I think that I said something about, if they called the police, that would only bring shame upon themselves because they had no reason whatsoever, to ask me to leave. And I could show the police what it says on the plaque right in front of the Kingdom Hall, public place of worship. Anyways, one of the head elders, Brother Cosbeck, came and asked me to leave. And so now I decided, to myself that I was going to take them to the Human Rights Tribunal. And that's why I decided, okay, I'll leave, but I'm going to make you pay, not for only tonight, the humiliation of tonight, but the humiliation for years from back to 2013. And for all the aggravation that they caused me and all the nonsense and at times sleepless nights, and even at times, brought me to tears from all of their nonsense. So here's something else that I want to share with you. I left and asked a brother to call me a taxi because I didn't have my cell with me. And so a brother called a taxi, and I waited outside in the cold in view of all the brothers for over 40 minutes. That's how long it took a taxi to come. Okay. And so this is brotherly love, right? To watch a sister standing outside in the cold, waiting for a taxi for over 40 minutes. Anyways, so you can see why I decided to take them to the Human Rights Tribunal. The Kingdom Hall is a public place of worship. As a member of the public, I have the right to attend as long as I do not make a disturbance. And as I mentioned, I've never made a disturbance or uh, caused any reason for any concern. I, however, have been treated in a very discriminatory and disrespectful and very unloving and unkind and hateful and emotionally harmful manner by these elders. And as I said, not only that evening, April 12th, but for years. And I have a record of, many emails written to the elders, uh, to the Canadian branch, and even to overseers about their unscriptural treatment and slander. Anyways, I have written the Canadian branch office about this treatment uh, on April 12th. And I'm waiting for them to see if they'll respond because I want to take them to the Human Rights Tribunal as well, because I know that, what I did is that I sent them a registered letter and they signed for it. So I have proved that they received it. And today I called a brother at the Canadian branch to see what was happening with my letter that I wrote back in, sent them April 22nd. So it's been over about 3 weeks now since they received it. And I spoke to a brother at the Canadian branch, and he did say that they did receive it. But from his conversation, and I eventually asked him, did they contact the brothers at the Deer Lake congregation? And no, they hadn't. What he said is that they were waiting for me to get in touch with them in order for someone to speak to me and to see how they could handle the situation. And basically, what his intention was for me to sort of forget the whole situation and to go back to the congregation. And he even tried to talk me into or convince me to go back and to agree not to talk about my medical natural beliefs to anyone. And I said, no, my medical beliefs, natural or not, are nobody's business except my own. The elders have no right to ask me not to talk about anything. It is my right, you know, freedom of speech is something that we all have a right to. Freedom of speech. They have no right to dictate to us what we can talk about and what we can't, and especially if it's not scriptural, if nothing about it is wrong. And not only that, but none of the brothers and sisters have ever come to me and told me that whatever, my beliefs are something that they don't agree with. None ever. Over all of the years that I've been attending meetings and so on and talking to different ones, no brother or sister ever came to me telling me that, what I said was out of line or that I offended them or that it wasn't, nothing like that ever. So basically, the elders had no valid reason to come to me because we're told at Matthew 18 and 15 to 17 that if we ever have a problem about anything, we should go and talk to our brother or sister ourselves and try to take care of the matter between ourselves. And if we can't, then take along one or two with us. And then if we're not successful, then only then take it to the congregation. Okay. And my belief is that the congregation is the entire congregation, not just the elders, and not for them to think that they have some special right or privilege to make the decisions for everyone. Uh, anyways, so uh, let me just catch my thought here where I left off because I started sharing some thoughts and feelings about something else. So anyways, uh, so this is where, as I, said, I made the complaint, and I heard back from the Human Rights Tribunal that they received my complaint, and they're considering it and will get back to me. But I'm sure that they will go ahead with this because there is no doubt as to the violation that they committed. Um, and uh, so this is probably, what I wanted to cover or to share with you. And as I mentioned, I will, in another video, share with you my story uh, of what I've experienced with these elders since 2013. And, you would not believe, you'll be shocked, okay? Because they've lied to me, as you've seen. They lie like it's nothing, okay? Um, and they slandered me. And of course, when I wanted to, um, uh, you know, uh, what is it called? Do a not It's not a judicial hearing, but it's a second step in Matthew. So when we want to ask someone, to come along with us and to, um, to speak to someone who has done us wrong, who has slandered us. And of course, I couldn't find anybody. The elders refused to take that step with me, and so nobody else, would either. Uh, but that's another story, as I mentioned, for another time. So hopefully, um, this will help you. And I would like to encourage you, to think of the Human Rights Tribunal as someone that you can go to. Because in reality, my situation, in comparison to other people's uh, situations and what they've gone through, and what the what the organization and the Watchtower have done to them, is in comparison to my experience. Many have gone through hell, and some have committed suicide as a result. Others have been going into therapy for years as a result. So please consider your own situations, and use the Human Rights Tribunal. The Human Rights Tribunal is in every city and in most countries. So go to the website and find out how to do an application. It's very simple, and how to fill it out, and it'll show you all the remedies that you're entitled to. I made a video about that. It's called Human Rights, and it's only a few minutes long. So please look at that video as well and find out what the remedies are and what you're entitled to. So, my friends, until next time, all the best to you, and God bless.